Right, it's been a good day on the markets, more than 5% in the green for the all share. We had some good showings from the banks and miners. Let's get more insights now on someone that was watching the markets today, Nick Kunze from Sanlam Private Wealth. Nick, thanks once again for talking to us. I mean, this was a fairly good day on the market, and you had those miners really doing well, you had the banks doing well, and the market ended up in the positive despite those huge heavyweights, Naspers and Prosus, being way down in the negative. Was this a domestic story here?
Yeah, good evening, Devin. I don't think it was just a domestic story. But it is definitely a tale of, let's call it, two different markets. So the miners, as you said, are huge outperformers. We actually saw a bit of sort of overflow from this morning, where the miners were the outperformers in Asia, in Australia this morning, and they continued into the South African and the Northern Hemisphere session. And as you pointed out, still a little bit of pressure on the tech shares. You know, also a little bit of hangover from what we saw last week with the likes of Facebook, the tech sector, the Nasdaq still down 15% year to date, relative to our all share, which is relatively shining, up almost 3% year today. It's a big outperformance. So yes, very much a tale of two very different markets on the JSE today.
Nick, I want to talk about our bonds, which have been doing somewhat well, at least in recent days. And the reason why we look at this is because it's a good indicator of how international investors are looking at South Africa at the moment. We could use with some good news. Our bonds not doing too shabby.
Yeah, I mean, let's take the good news when we can, Devin, and you're right. The bond markets, also known as the fixed income markets, certainly dwarf the equity market. So when you look at your money flows as money managers, you want to see where your flows go. You have to look at the bond markets. And the bond markets in South Africa, as you said, are not looking too shabby. Net inflows from foreigners over the last sort of 2 weeks as well, showing the foreigners are liking them. And interesting enough, just an observation, Devin, that the inflation numbers, even though they are quite high in South Africa, they are quite benign compared to what we're seeing abroad, with inflation in America going to be probably north to 7, 8, 9%, the numbers looking for in the next couple of weeks over there. And in that reflection is that the bond markets seem to like the benign inflation story. So getting a bit here in South Africa, and the foreigners lapping them up.
Yeah, and just a quick one on the company side. Sasol is interesting. It looks like, although they fundamentally did well, the margins were not great. They're releasing a trading update today saying they don't expect to do good on the profit side of things. But I mean, it's an interesting company when you look at what Sasol does. It's not just oil, is it?
No, it's not just oil. As South Africans and South African investors, we're indoctrinated to think Sasol's all about the oil story. And yes, that was just the story maybe a decade ago. But quietly, Sasol reinventing themselves as very much a chemical play too. Almost 40% of the income derived from chemicals. And those who follow markets more closely than maybe I do, and knew what the chemical prices are doing, chemical prices up anywhere between 30 and 50% this year, relative to oil prices, which are up about 25%. So Sasol net beneficiary. Look at their share price this year, a little bit softer today up that trading update, Devin, but nevertheless, Sasol still up 30% year to date, a real beneficiary of chemical and the oil price north of $90 a barrel.
All right, and just a quick one, Nick, before I let you go. We talk about inflation, about food inflation. Look at RCL. This is a food manufacturing group. Its competitor is Tiger Brands. Again, releasing a trading update that looks pretty bright. I mean, I'm wondering, is this the consumer that's recovering here, or what is it?
Well, I think the consumer is recovering, but I also think the consumer at some point is going to be a little bit under pressure. Look at that RCL price. Even though the trading update wasn't so bad, as you said, share price has done pretty much nothing this year. In fact, I think it's down a couple of percent. The hard problem the likes of RCL have got with their confectionery business, with their biscuit business, is passing that food inflation on to the consumer, which they haven't done yet. I think it's only a matter of time. But of course, the other point is, does the South African consumer have capacity to pay more for his biscuits at tea time? So we'll watch that one. But inflation definitely coming ahead of us in the next couple of months.
All right. Nick Kunze from Sanlam Private Wealth, thanks very much indeed for your time.